The Forgotten House in Red Hollow. A true horror story about being watched. There's a kind of silence in small forgotten towns that doesn't feel peaceful. It feels wrong, heavy, like the land itself remembers things that people don't want to say out loud. Red Hollow was exactly that kind of place. Tiny, fading. The kind of town without streetlights or stores that stayed open past 8 p.m., where everyone knew everyone, and everyone knew not to ask too many questions. Especially about the house on Old Briar Lane, my grandmother's house, the house nobody talked about. It wasn't always like that. When I was a kid, it was just another crumbling old farmhouse at the edge of the woods. Faded white paint, broken fence, a wide, empty yard filled with dead grass. But over the years, something changed. People crossed the street when they walked past it. Children dared each other to touch the mailbox like it was cursed. And the older folks, they just shook their heads if you asked why. Best leave it be, they'd say. Some places don't forget. I hadn't been there in years. Not since my grandmother passed away and left the place abandoned. But in early autumn, me and my two closest friends, Nathan and Eli, decided to drive out there. Just for one night. Just to see it. Just to prove to ourselves that nothing was really there. That the stories were just stories. The drive to Red Hollow felt like slipping backward in time. No traffic, no lights. Just miles of twisting, narrow roads swallowed by dark woods. The house was waiting for us at the very end. Exactly as I remembered it. And exactly worse. Windows shut tight, curtains drawn, no cars, no movement. But something about it felt lived in, like a place holding its breath. Nathan laughed it off. Creepy, but classic, he said. Eli wasn't so sure. He pointed to the dirt near the front steps. Footprints, not ours, not fresh, but not old either. Big, heavy, circling the front of the house like someone had stood there for a long time, just watching. We told ourselves it could have been anyone, an old neighbor, a curious local. But inside my chest, something shifted. A warning I didn't want to admit. Still, we went inside. Old wood groaned beneath our boots. The air smelled dry, but underneath it all, faint traces of something else. Cigarette smoke? Sweat? Food? It didn't fit. Nobody had lived here in years. We set our bags in the old living room. We told stories. We joked. But deep down, none of us wanted to say what we were all thinking. That the house didn't feel empty. It felt patient, like it was waiting for us to settle in, to stay, to fall asleep, to stop paying attention. That night, we should have left. We should have trusted that silence. But we didn't, and Red Hollow wasn't done with us yet. Night in Red Hollow felt colder than it should have. Not the kind of cold that comes from weather, but the kind that comes from old, hollow spaces. The kind of cold that sinks into your bones without touching your skin. We sat in the living room for a while talking, laughing nervously, forcing normal conversation over the creaking sounds of the house settling around us. But it didn't feel like settling. It felt like moving. Slow, careful, deliberate. At some point, Eli got up to go to the kitchen. He came back slower than he left. "You guys move this?" he asked quietly. We shook our heads. He held up an old porcelain cup. Dusty, cracked. The kind that had sat in the same place for years. Except now, it was sitting dead center on the kitchen table. Perfectly placed. Clean space beneath it. Like it had been sitting there a long time. Or like someone had just put it there for us to find. Nathan forced a laugh. Probably slid when we walked. But none of us believed that. The floor wasn't even. But not that uneven. And the kitchen? Silent. Still. Until you walked in. Until you touched something. Until you breathed. We tried to ignore it. Tried to talk louder. Play music from Nathan's phone. But the battery died within minutes, even though it had been nearly full. We shrugged it off. Until Eli's phone did the same. Then mine. Full battery. Dead within seconds of each other. That's when we heard it. Faint. Somewhere upstairs. A soft tap. Not loud, not urgent, just patient, like a fingertip gently touching the wall. Once, twice, 3 times, we froze. Nathan whispered, "Rats?" But we knew better. Rats don't move like that. Rats don't wait between sounds. Rats don't follow rhythm. Then another sound. The long, slow drag of something across the upstairs floorboards. Heel of a boot? Hand? Furniture? Impossible to tell. But it moved from one side of the house to directly above us, then stopped. Complete silence. The kind that presses down on your chest. The kind that fills your ears like water. Eli mouthed, "We are not alone." Nathan stood slowly. "No way! No way is someone up there!" But his voice shook in a way I had never heard before. We waited, listening, hoping it would stay quiet, that whoever, whatever was up there, would stay away. But then, the worst sound yet. Soft, near the stairwell, barely audible. Breath, not ours, not animal, human. Exhale, long, slow, watching, waiting. Red Hollow wasn't empty. We weren't alone. And upstairs, someone had just exhaled, right at the top of the stairs. None of us spoke for a long moment. That slow, deliberate exhale from the top of the stairs didn't just sound close, it sounded comfortable. Like whoever was up there wasn't afraid of us. Wasn't rushing, wasn't even surprised. It was the kind of sound a person makes when they've been waiting a long time. When they know the house better than you ever will. Nathan broke the silence. Half whisper, half shaking breath. We gotta check. It was either that, or sit there all night, waiting for whatever was up there to come down on its own terms. Neither option felt good, but sitting still felt worse. Slowly, like every step was made of glass, we made our way toward the staircase. Old wood groaned beneath us, the sound sharp in the dead air. I remember thinking how loud my own heartbeat sounded in my ears. Like it didn't belong to me anymore. Like it belonged to him. Nathan led the way. Eli was behind me. I didn't dare look back. Every creak of a board above us felt like a countdown, like a clock winding down towards something awful. We reached the top of the stairs. Dark, colder, still. The narrow hallway stretched out ahead of us like a throat we were about to walk straight into. Doors left half open. Shadows hanging like cloth. But nothing moving. Nothing obvious. Nothing alive. Nathan gestured toward the far room. Grandmother's old bedroom. The biggest, the darkest. Of course it was. We stepped carefully down the hall. Closer, closer, until Eli stopped dead in his tracks. "Wait," he whispered. He pointed downward. The floor. Dust covered everything up there, except for a trail of perfectly clean footprints. Large, heavy, moving from room to room like someone patrolled this place like it was their home. But worse than that, those prints circled right behind us, behind the stairway, into a small storage room we hadn't noticed before. And from inside that dark space came the faint sound of something shifting, breathing, listening. Close. Too close. Nathan raised his hand, signaling us to back up. But before we could move, that noise. A low, scraping drag. Wood against wood. Metal against floor. Deliberate. And then, soft laughter, dry, quiet. Not from fear, not from madness, from amusement. From a man who thought this was all a game. His game, his house, his rules, and the final horror that turned my blood to ice. Pinned to the back of the door leading into that small room, a single photograph. Old, color faded, edges torn. But clear enough, a picture of me, standing outside the house, taken from inside, taken long before tonight, taken when I thought this place was empty. We weren't exploring an abandoned house. We were walking straight into his hunting ground, and he had been watching us long before we ever stepped inside. None of us moved. That photo pinned to the door, a picture of me taken from inside the house, said everything we needed to know. We weren't intruding on some abandoned place. We were inside his house, and this whole night had been waiting for us. Nathan broke the silence. "We need to leave." His voice barely worked. I felt my body start moving before my brain caught up. We backed away from the door slowly, careful not to make a sound. But then, click, a sharp metallic noise from downstairs, near the front door. The unmistakable sound of a bolt sliding into place. Someone was locking us inside. Eli whispered, "Oh God." Nathan shot me a look. He was down there the whole time. Every horror story we'd ever told each other suddenly felt childish. This wasn't a ghost. This wasn't folklore. This was a man. Alive. Dangerous. Smart. And worse, patient. We made it to the stairs. Nathan went down first. Halfway down, he froze. His whisper cut the air like a knife. "Trap!" I looked. Thin, rusty wire stretched from the front door handle across to the stair railing. A tripwire. Set low. Invisible in the dark. Waiting for panic. Waiting for us to run blind. Waiting to catch us. Nathan turned slowly. His eyes said everything. He wants us to run. That's when we heard it. From deeper inside the house. Dragging. Heavy. Slow. Something being pushed across the floor. Then, another sound. Something large hitting a doorframe. He was blocking the back exits, one by one, sealing us in. We moved, fast but silent. Straight to the kitchen. Old houses have weaknesses. We prayed. The side window was one of them. Nathan grabbed the frame. Pulled. It didn't move at first. Old paint sealed it shut. But he yanked harder, the wood cracked. Glass trembled, and finally, it shifted. He squeezed through first. Dropped hard onto the dirt outside. Then Eli, shaking. Barely holding it together. I turned to climb out last. Just as I hoisted myself up, boots scraping the wall, I saw him, standing in the hallway, motionless, tall, thin, head slightly tilted, watching me. Not running, not speaking, just watching. But right before I pulled myself fully through that tiny window, I heard it. Soft. Too soft. From the dark. A voice I'll never forget. "See you soon." We hit the ground outside running. Didn't stop until Nathan's truck was in sight. Even as the house shrank behind us in the dark, I knew this wasn't over. Not with someone like him. Not someone who sets traps like that. Someone who waits. Morning felt unreal. Cold sunlight over empty streets. We hadn't slept at all. None of us spoke much on the drive back to town. Not about him. Not about the house. Not about the voice that had whispered, "See you soon," right behind me. Nathan called the police first thing. Eli didn't even want to go back. But I had to. Not because I was brave. Because fear like that, it doesn't just go away. It sticks. It eats at you. Until you have to know. You have to see. The sheriff was an older man, Sheriff Dalton. When Nathan told him where we'd been, his face changed. Like this wasn't the first time someone mentioned that house. But he didn't say anything. He just called for backup. We drove back with 2 deputies. Broad daylight should have made it easier. It didn't. The house on Old Briar Lane looked even worse in the morning. Still, dead, wrong. Like it didn't belong in this world anymore. The front door was still locked from the inside. The wire trap still strung tight. Dalton muttered, "Jesus Christ." He cut it carefully. No alarms, no noise. Just old, rotten silence. Inside was colder than before, dust hanging like fog in the sunbeams. But now that we knew to look, everything changed. Scratches on doorframes. Little marks on the floor near corners. Patches where dust had been disturbed. He didn't just sleep here. He moved through this house like an animal in a den. Invisible. Get. Fast. Dalton found the biggest horror upstairs. In that small storage room where the photo had been pinned, behind an old shelf, a hidden crawl space. Low, narrow, pitch black, but filled with things. Blankets, old food wrappers, empty water bottles, journals, dozens of pages filled with shaky handwriting, observations, notes, almost all about us. Boy 1 looks out kitchen window often. Boy 2 leaves boots at door. Third one stays quiet, watches surroundings. Careful. He'd been watching before we ever stayed. Weeks maybe? Months. Long enough to know our habits, long enough to set traps, long enough to feel safe here. But the worst thing was what he kept under those blankets. A small pile of personal items. Not ours. Different. A driver's license? A child's backpack? A cracked cell phone? Different names? Different faces? People from this area. People that were probably long gone. No reports, no news, no missing person flyers, just forgotten ghosts. Like the house itself. Dalton's face turned hard. This wasn't just a squatter. He was right. This was his territory, his hunting ground, his game. But one thing chilled me more than anything else in that crawl space. Pinned to the inside wall, another photo, not old, not faded, fresh, me, taken from across the street, from last week, long before we ever stepped into that house, long before I thought anyone even knew I existed. The police stayed in that house for hours. Dust floated like snow in every sunbeam. But even after they cleared every room, every crawl space, every inch of that rotting place, he was gone. No sign of him, no footsteps leading out, no trail into the woods. It was like he vanished, melted back into the cracks of Red Hollow. Sheriff Dalton stood outside with us near his patrol car. He looked tired, older than before, but not surprised. "This isn't the first time," he finally said. Nathan frowned. "What do you mean?" Dalton paused. "There's been stories about this house for years, back before any of you were born." He looked straight at me. "People saw things, heard things, but nobody stayed long enough to know the truth." His voice dropped lower. "Except him." That hit different. This wasn't a squatter. This wasn't some random drifter who found an empty house. This was his place. For years, maybe decades, watching whoever dared to get too close. Waiting for them to leave, or to stay. Dalton shook his head. "We'll keep looking. But I'll be honest with you kids, men like that," he didn't finish. He didn't have to. "Men like that don't get caught. Not unless they want to. We left Red Hollow that day like we were escaping a dream that didn't want to let us go. But the nightmare wasn't inside that house anymore. It was following us home. Inside our heads. Weeks passed. Nathan barely slept. Eli refused to talk about it at all. As for me, every sound outside my window felt like a footstep. Every creak in the walls sounded like breathing. Every night when the wind blew just right, I swore I could hear him again. Not close, not loud, just faint, patient. And then it happened. Late one night, phone vibrating on my nightstand. Unknown number, no message, no caller ID. Just a photo. Attached, fresh, taken from the street, taken from across the road. A photo of my house, of my front door, and standing in the distance, barely visible. A figure, tall, thin, waiting, watching, no words, no threats, just the photo. That was all he needed to say. I stared at that photo on my phone for a long time. Longer than I probably should have. The image didn't move, but it didn't have to. My front door, my street, and him. Far away, near the trees. Still, waiting. I didn't sleep that night. I didn't even turn off the lights. I sat in my living room, watching the front window like my life depended on it. I had a bat next to me. Pointless maybe, but it was all I had. Morning came, nothing happened. No new messages, no noise, no sign of him. But fear like that doesn't leave when the sun comes up. It stays in your chest. It lives in the space between your breaths. And every single shadow starts to look wrong. Days passed, weeks, but I knew it wasn't over. I stopped walking to work, stopped staying home alone, started checking every lock twice, started sleeping with a chair against the door, started jumping at every knock, every creak, every sound outside my window. He wasn't just a man anymore. He was a ghost, one that I knew was still out there. Then came the night I'll never forget. Late, maybe 2 or 3 a.m., my phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. But this time, no photo, just a message. 2 words. Turn around. My heart nearly stopped. I was sitting in my living room, facing the front door, facing the window. Nothing there. Empty street, silent night. But still, I felt it. That electric pull of being watched. Not from the front, not from outside, from behind. Slowly, so slowly I turned my head, across the room, toward the small window near my kitchen. And there he was, standing perfectly still, right outside, face shadowed, but unmistakably him, closer than ever. Not moving, not rushing, just waiting. We locked eyes for what felt like forever. And then, the smallest movement. Not a wave, not a step, just a tilt of his head. Like he was studying me. Like he was making sure I understood. He could get in any time he wanted. But he didn't. He never moved. Never tried the door. Never touched the glass. He didn't need to. Because people like him, they don't want to break in. They want to live inside you. In your fear, in your thoughts, where no lock in the world can keep them out. Eventually he turned, stepped back into the dark, melted into the trees, gone, like a shadow, slipping back where it came from. But the worst part? Even now, even after all this time, when the night gets quiet enough, when I'm alone, long enough, I swear I can still feel him out there, waiting, watching, not because he needs anything, not because he wants anything, just because he can. People always think stories like this end with a catch. With the police showing up, with someone getting arrested, with a body found in the woods, with closure. But that's not how this ended. Not for me. Not for Red Hollow. Not for anyone who ever stepped too close to that house. After that night, he never came back. Not to my window, not to my street, not in any way I could see. But that didn't mean he was gone. Far from it. Sheriff Dalton called me a few days later. No new leads, no sightings, nothing. Just an empty house on Old Briar Lane, cleared out, locked up, forgotten. At least, that's what everyone wanted to believe. But fear like that doesn't die in sunlight. It stays in the walls of places like Red Hollow. It stays in your mind. It waits. Months passed. Nathan moved away. Eli never set foot near the woods again. As for me, I still wake up some nights. Not from nightmares, not from dreams, but from silence. The wrong kind of silence. The kind I first heard in that house. Alive, watching, patient. I moved too. Different town, different job, different life. But sometimes, I still catch myself glancing out my window longer than I should. Still checking every lock twice. Still feeling like someone is standing just outside the edge of the light. Not moving, not chasing, just waiting. And here's the truth nobody likes to admit. People like him, they don't need to hurt you to destroy you. They don't need to break in to leave a mark. Sometimes they just need to be seen. Once. Just once. Long enough for you to know. They could have reached you if they wanted. But they didn't. Because knowing that, living with that, it's worse than anything else. And sometimes, late at night, when I pass by an old house, or an empty field, or a dark window at the end of a dead street, I wonder if he's out there. Another town, another house, another face pressed just beyond the glass, smiling, waiting, patient as ever, still here, always here. Just waiting for someone else to come close enough to see him, and close enough to never forget.